I had this aha the other day that I'm like, oh my God, this is such a fun thought. Probably someone else has thought of it, but it got me really pumped. And it was an analogy, which is that an atom is to matter or life, all life on Earth, single atom, as presence is to our experience. And this was inspired by a 2-hour coffee chat in which presence was a topic of conversation with a total internet stranger who reached out to me because we're in a community together of like hundreds of people. And she just said something like, hi, Pam, I watched one of the community event recordings and you were on it, or you were speaking, and what you said like really resonated with me. I'm in New York for a few days, would love to grab a coffee. And I said yes, solely based off that message and her one-line bio in the community, which is like maybe a dozen words. And it just resonated. And because I know the kinds of people I'm looking for in this world, the values-aligned, purpose-driven, mission-driven people, she immediately resonated. And so I said yes to a total stranger based off 2 sentences pretty much. And we ended up having a 2-hour coffee, and it was like just so heartwarming. It was so like just a hug. And we were talking about presence, and she brought it up. But I walked away from that conversation thinking about how if the atom is the single most basic unit from which life is built and constructed, created, what is the equivalent of that in our day-to-day? Actually, I think I thought about presence first as the most foundational unit, and then I thought about the atom. So yeah, it happened that way. But presence is available to us at every second. Not only, that's not even the right way to say it, it is us at every second, right? Every second in which we are conscious, we are bringing some kind of presence, even if the presence is distracted or out of it or exhausted or half asleep, right? But that's still presence that we were bringing into each a second. Like if you think about your waking hours, and if every moment you are experiencing life, the only thing that is happening in that moment is you being in that moment, however you decide to be in that moment. And so if the atom is the most critical infrastructure of our life, then our presence is the most critical infrastructure of our experience. If you think about the times where you brought a certain positive, joyful, excited presence to something, what that experience was like and how engaged you were. Or if you brought skepticism, doubt, wariness, how that affected the experience. And if you brought distance, coldness, anger, how that affected it, right? It's certainly not as scientific as an atom to matter or life, but if you think about the unit breakdown, there isn't anything to break down further from presence because it is you in that moment. And what the magical part is we get to choose it, whether or not we realize it, whether or not we are aware of it, whether or not we feel like we can. In the same way that there's the old adage of you can choose your thoughts, you can choose your presence, you can choose how you show up in every moment, no matter how overwhelming the world can be. And I don't mean this to apply to every single human who might have different mental wiring, chemistry, disorders, conditions. Like, I can't speak to every single human who might have certain chemical makeups in their brain that actually do not give them any wherewithal to control their presence. But for those of us who can go out into the world and function on our own, who can engage with the world, then it is available to us to choose what we bring into that presence. And the magic, beyond the magic, is that we don't have to bring any more than just who we truly are. The gift that we give each other is our presence. Other people notice when you do not seem present, right? But the presence you are bringing is distracted or not present or in another world or daydreaming or confused, whatever it might be. But when you can be in a space with someone, and I hope you have had this experience where you can be in some kind of engagement with someone where you can sense how they are just fully there, listening to you, seeing you, open to understanding you, curious about you. Like what that feels like to be so kind of whole in that moment with someone else. You don't have to put on any facade. You don't have to wear some figurative hat. There's no mask to put on in terms of here's my professional hat, here's my personal hat, here's my family hat, here's my romantic hat. It's just you. Whatever you intend to bring into that moment. And I don't mean to oversimplify, but everything flourishes from there in the same way that everything flourishes from the atom as far as life goes. We have little less and little more to give. We are totally enough. In our presence with whoever we are with, in whatever setting we are in, if we can be there 100% to see and understand or be open to understanding other people, that is the greatest gift. I have had people give me just the most heartfelt, touching, like words about what they felt because I listened to them. I probably, in some of those exchanges, said barely a word, except maybe some sounds to like validate that like I heard them, like like with expressions too. So, but sometimes like that's the extent where I'm like just communicating with body language and sounds and maybe touch if that was welcome. But like I've had people like cry, strangers tell me like how meaningful that was because they just felt so heavy. They were carrying so much weight emotionally and mentally. And being with them just like that, not telling them it's going to be okay, not trying to change their mind, not trying to make it better, just being with them is what so many people have said was the most valuable thing. And then from there, you can build. You can build into a conversation about, okay, what can we do about this? You can build into a conversation about, giving advice if they ask. Or you can build into a conversation just asking more questions to understand more, being more curious, giving them more space to share. But anything can be built from that. And so I wonder, for every single one of you, if you think about your presence as the foundational unit from which everything in your life is built. And that could be presence within action by yourself. That can be presence in thought by yourself. It can be presence in the shower to feel the water on your body. It could be presence with a best friend who you haven't seen in a really long time and you want to know how they are. It could be presence in a meeting where you are really there to understand what everyone has to say so you can offer something generative to them. If it's presence at a party, for you to really observe what's happening and see what you want to engage in. If you think about that being the unit from which you can build every kind of experience you could possibly have on this planet, and you can choose the quality of that foundational unit, of that presence, what would you choose? What would you want? What qualities would you want to bring to those moments to start your experience? And if you come up with some words now, what would it be like if you carried those qualities into every moment that you could going forth? Maybe you won't hit every moment, but what would it be like? Just imagine. How could your life be different? Because if that starts to be the foundation from which you build every experience, and you start to bring a consistent quality or qualities to those foundational moments and units, what are you building over time? What does that quality start to feel like in your life if it's showing up consistently? And over time, maybe it's all the time. Because I think this is how the monks who have reached enlightenment maintain what they maintain. Because they choose what they bring to every single one of those moments. And if you started thinking of negative words, then imagine what it would be like if you carried that negative quality to your foundational unit of experience in every moment. And if you did think of something negative, what would it be like if you brought something positive? How could that infect your life in a good way? If you could change the base unit from which you experience your life, your environment, every person you come across, the whole world. And if you brought that to your life, now imagine what that could do for others. How does that start to permeate all the interactions that you have? What are you bringing to the kinetic energy that you build with other people? Because maybe then you get to infect other people with that hopefully positive energy. Because it goes both ways, right? The principles of life don't only go in the positive direction. But if you went through this thought exercise with me, I do hope that you thought of joyful things, hopeful qualities, positive qualities. Because I'd like to think that all of us want the world to be a better place. And I know we may disagree on what that looks like. But at a base level, I would like to believe that we can agree that we all want our days and our interactions with ourselves and each other to be as warm and kind and open and caring as possible. And I absolutely believe that is possible. But it starts with the foundation. And that foundational unit is your presence. So, what will you take forth with your presence from now on?